Welcome. Welcome back. And welcome to Lessons from a High School Dropout. I don't know if many of you know what this song is, but this is one of the masterful writings back in the 1970s. Welcome back, Cotter. I don't know, maybe they had some influence on me for my ideas about classrooms and school. That's right, this high school dropout watched a lot of Welcome Back, Cotter. And I think you ought to try to find some of their old stories. But we got a great podcast today. I've got some things I want to share. Also, I'm going to tell you right now, I got some books to recommend. One is this book right here. It's called When God Winks. Masterful book. It's written by a man by the name of Squire Rushnell. Squire Rushnell. He was an executive for Good Morning America. He was the guy who took over Good Morning America just as David Hartman was there and exiting years ago, the great David Hartman. And he also ran a major cable television network. But his writings in the book When God Winks are something that will move you to a different place. If you're looking to move yourself to a different place and a little higher level of consciousness and recognizing how the universe just brings us things. When God Winks is definitely one I want to recommend. This book here is going out to a guy I met on an airplane here just not too long ago. And while on that plane ride with him, we talked about some of his careers. And he was a rather young guy, but he was most recently in the mortgage business, and that's kind of collapsed, right? The mortgage banking business. And so he kind of searching for things, and his wife was looking at possibly going down for a job in New Mexico on that flight. And so I wish him the best, and I'm going to send him this book. And I got a few of these books I'm going to send out to some people I met in my travels. When God Winks. Hey, if you sit next to me on an airplane, you might end up getting a new book. But today I've got a real brief story I want to share with you, and it's titled "I've Come a Long Way." This is on the Howard Schultz family Foundation. Howard Schultz is the founder of Starbucks, and I like what they do with the Schultz Foundation. So sometimes I go on there and see what's going on. But "I've Come a Long Way" is about a story about Lakeisha Martin. She loves the freedom of the open road. She's a commercially licensed truck driver, and every day she crisscrosses across the country in an 18-wheeler, 53-foot long haul truck. She says, "I can't believe I'm doing this. I've come a long way." Let me share you a little bit about her life and her story. Lakeisha grew up in a small town in Arkansas. Opportunities were limited and family support was minimal. In 2015, she was arrested and charged with multiple felonies, including aggravated robbery and aggravated assault. She spent 3 years in prison. 2 months before her release, Lakeisha says she realizes she needed to make some drastic changes if she truly wanted to turn her life around. Upon her release, Lakeisha jumped on a Greyhound bus and headed for Dallas, Texas. There she began a slow, steady, and often frustrating process of rebuilding her life. She worked warehouse jobs and fast food jobs to make ends meet, only to be let go once her employers found out about her background. Lakeisha says she didn't realize how much her criminal record would limit her opportunities. Employers judged her not by her work ethic and potential, but on her status as a felon. Shame on them. The Howard Schultz Foundation has put this on their website, so let's have a big shout out and a cheers and a to a Starbucks macchiato or your frappuccino or whatever it is your drink you like. I think it'd be great if they somehow someday soon added some smoothies, some healthy blended smoothies to get me from, wing me off some of my caffeine. But in search of a stable and well-paying job, Lakeisha began exploring the idea of becoming a truck driver. In truck school in Dallas, she was introduced to Free World. Free World is a tech-enabled nonprofit working to eliminate recidivism by connecting formerly incarcerated people to high-wage truck driving jobs. Graduates of the program, known as free agents, are given support to find employment for up to 3 years after graduation. Once free agents are successfully employed, they must pay it forward by contributing 10% of their monthly income for 3 years to help the next person complete the program. Now let's give a shout out for Free World, right? Nobody knows about these things, but you got to search around and you got to care a little bit about humanity and what's going on. And that's what Lessons from a High School Dropout is about. And me too, as I dropped out of high school at 17 years of age in 1982. I'd already filed 5 tax returns, so I wasn't a slouch. And I grew up in a good, hardworking Midwestern family in Kansas City, and I learned a lesson for 61 days. It wasn't 3 years, but it was 61 days. But 2 months after walking into trucking school, Lakeisha walked out with her commercial driver's license, a CDL license to drive a 53-foot long-haul tractor trailer. O'Neill never heard of Free World's post-program and job placement manager said Lakeisha was a star student. Everybody makes mistakes. Mistakes should not define your future as long as you're striving to better yourself, he said. Free World provided Lakeisha with a space and a community of people with similar lived experience, like O'Neill, who didn't judge her and who supported her. Lakeisha's biggest success, she says, is staying out of prison. On average, according to Free World, 68% of released prisoners are rearrested within 3 years. Free World believes financial stability can help mitigate the risk of recidivism. Recidivism is just repeating everything, just going back in the same cycle. Now that Lakeisha has found stability, she's working to pay it forward through Free World's program so others can find stability too. Lakeisha is engaged and has 2 stepchildren. Driving trucks has allowed her to provide for her new family, giving them a better life than she had growing up. She has traveled to every state in the United States. I can't believe I'm doing it, honestly. I'm like, man, I've come a long way, she said. This is the happiest I've ever been. What a beautiful story. I'm going to post that on Lessons from High School Dropout, that story, because it needs to be heard. And you'll see that on the video of her story. I've come a long way here pretty soon, and you'll hear a little bit of her talk. But anyhow, that's my uplifting story about what's good in America, what's changing in America, is people who are reaching out and helping pull others forward, and that's what this podcast is about. And I want to talk to you about another person who I did some research recently on someone. When I was a kid, I was very into the Olympics and things like that. I loved it. I loved watching all the sports things on Saturday afternoon, the wide world of sports. I sure missed that. How many missed that, right? Make a comment and tell me you miss wide world of sports. Maybe I'll post some great wide world of sports videos for us on Lessons from a High School Dropout YouTube channel. But I'm going to tell you a story today about a woman, and maybe some of you have heard of her, but I heard of her when I was a little kid, and her name is Wilma Rudolph. She was born premature, 4 months, weighing only 4.5 pounds. It's a miracle she even was alive and being able to grow and become who she became. Miracles do happen. They happen every day. Nothing's impossible. At 2 years of age, she came down with double pneumonia and scarlet fever. Then she contracted infantile paralysis caused by the polio virus at age 5. She recovered from her polio but lost the strength of her left leg, and she ended up wearing an iron brace until she was 12. So she had a very, very difficult disability there, being able to walk like a normal child. Her mother sent her to weekly treatments, and she gave her massages 4 times a day on that leg. She had this desire when she was 12 years old that she wanted to become a runner, and she wanted to become a great runner. Well, she began to run, and each race she went into, she lost. She was last in every race. Then one day she didn't come in last, she came in second to last. Eventually, she won her first race, and soon she became the fastest girl in high school. Now, when I was a little boy, I want to just give a shout out to somebody. There's a girl that I went to school with, and her name was Becky. She was in my grade school, Oakwood Manor Grade School, and Becky Libier was her name. She's still around, but she has a different name now. But anyhow, she was the fastest girl I remember around, and a lot of boys didn't like the fact that she was faster and stronger than a lot of these boys. And if you wanted to stand up to, you better be able to stand up for yourself, because she was a strong girl. I like strong women. So shout out to Becky Libier. Irma went on to attend Tennessee State University, and while she attended there, she met a man named Ed Temple. And Ed Temple took a look at her and watched her and said, she had some indomitable spirit. She was just unstoppable. She wanted to become the fastest woman in the world. Now that seems like a pretty huge goal for someone who was wearing an iron leg for 7 years, and dragging it around thinking she was going to become this great runner. That's what a desire and a belief does for someone. She had a power of a belief, and Ed Temple saw that belief, and so he took her under his wing all the way through college, and he took her on up to the Olympics. She was in the 1956 and 1960 Olympics. In the 1960 Olympics, she dominated. Now, there's something about this story that's rather unique. There was a runner named Heine. There was a female runner who was the fastest runner. She's from Germany. I remember her name was Heine. Last name Heine, but I can't remember her first name. But anyhow, no one had ever beat her. She's the fastest woman in the world. In the 100, the 200, and the 440, she dominated everything. Well, come to get the gold medal was what little Wilma had in mind. She was going to get those gold medals. Well, she took the first in the 100, the second in the 200, and then the 440. She had to take on Jetta Heine. That's what his name is, Jetta Heine. She took on Jetta in the 440. It was a baton race. And after the baton was handed to the final runner in the stretch was Wilma Rudolph and Jetta Heine. And as they handed the baton to Wilma, in her excitement, she dropped the baton and had to turn around and pick it up. And Jetta was like a gazelle, and she was never going to catch her. Well, folks, that power of belief and that desire to become the world's fastest woman runner took place on that track in a matter of a few seconds of that final finish of the 440. And little Wilma Rudolph took the gold medal and took down Jetta Heine, and she went home with 3 gold medals from the 1960 Olympics. Now, folks, if you have a belief, if you're one of those people that say, I can't make it. You know, I haven't got the time. You know, my father and I never got anywhere. My grandfather never minded anything. You know, I can't make anything of myself. If that's a conversation you've ever put yourself into, it's time to stop. Because the power of belief is something I'm here to try and encourage you to grasp. And it comes from a desire. And that desire, by the way, in this book I'm going to give away, I mentioned, the chapter Desire is the largest chapter in this book. For a good reason. It's the largest chapter in the book, Think and Grow Rich. It's not about money, so don't think it is if it's your first time tuning in. It's about developing your inner self. And Wilma did that going through hell with an iron brace and plenty of people telling her, you got to stop, Wilma. You got to stop. You can't do this. They felt it was just going to tear her down. But she didn't stop. She didn't stop at all. She persevered with a desire and a belief that she could do it. And I believe you can too. I believe that people like Wilma, people like Lakeisha Martin can make it. You can make it. I dropped out of high school at 17. I'm not here to brag. I'm just telling you, I made something of myself. I became a salesperson. I became a great salesperson. Anybody who had me in their organization always prospered a little more because of my efforts and my desire. I wasn't always the top salesperson. I didn't need to be, because at the top of the top 4 or 5 was far ahead of the other 22 below us. You could take everybody's wealth in this world, divide it all up and equally hand it all out. It'd go back into the same hands. And the same thing for most sales teams and most companies. If you took everybody in there, the money would distribute the same way it once was, and that's because of the power of a belief. Now folks, if Lakeisha could believe and turn her life around, and Wilma Rudolph could become the fastest woman in the world and beat the never beaten Yetta Heine, you too can beat those demons that you allow to just hang on your shirt tail and remind you of something that you heard from somebody around you. Maybe it was a family member, maybe it was just the first 5 friends you hang out with telling you just can't do this. Well, I'm going to tell you what. There's a lot of people in this world who are told they can't do it, and they go further than they've ever dreamed. But anyhow, I wanted to thank you before we tune out here for tuning in to Lessons from a High School Dropout and taking time to listen to this podcast. And please like the bell and subscribe. I'd love to have you join the channel, but you don't have to. It's not a matter of numbers for me, but I'd love to have my numbers go up so more people get an opportunity to get closer to seeing us. Because Lessons from a High School Dropout is about reaching back and pulling others forward. So let's remember, if you're gonna do something for a foundation, you might want to do something with the Schultz Family Foundation. I've got a vision to pitch them a special opportunity to help children. And I'll talk about that one day soon, but we won't talk about it right now. But until next time, folks, I want you to think good things. Be positive. Have a vision. Build your belief. And remember, if you want one of these free books, because they're free from me, make a comment on this podcast. Make a comment on this podcast that you'll see. Just go down below and say, Troy the Boy, I'd love to have a copy. You just shoot me an email at TTJ Fitch, or I should say Lessons from a Dropout, High School Dropout. It's TTJ Fitch at lessonsfromhighschooldropout.com. Shoot me an email, and I'll be glad to send you one. Till next time, folks, cheers and ciao for now.